Norway is under attack. At least that's what everyone here is pretending. It's all a big war game, a huge NATO operation where countries practice what it's like to defend an ally from an invasion. The bad guys aren't named here, but let's be honest, everyone knows we're talking about Russia. There's been so much talk of Russian meddling and disinformation that it's easy to forget about a worse Russian threat. Actual war. The likelihood of an armed Russian invasion of the States is basically zero. But we are a part of NATO, and that means if one country goes to war, we could all be at war. The question is, does that make sense today? First, a quick history lesson, and I mean quick. NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was created nearly 70 years ago to protect Western countries against the Soviet Union, now Russia. The idea was safety in numbers, outlined in something called Article 5. You can think of it as the Three Musketeers Clause. Basically, if Russia attacks an ally, even if it was thousands of miles away from our shores, we'd have to get in the game too. Today, NATO countries are training together in the biggest military exercise since the Cold War. It's called Trident Juncture, and it's a war game on steroids.
How ready are you guys for a hypothetical war with Russia?
I'm cock, locked, and ready to rock.
It's definitely impressive, but is NATO preparing for the right fight?
Election meddling, hacking, cyber threats. How has NATO adapted to deal with those?
Well, I mean, I think the alliance is the most successful collective security alliance in the history of the world. So I think it is adapting. Those threats that you talked about are difficult, and countries have to address them individually as far as, election meddling, whatnot.
And American Marines are just as ready and willing to risk their lives and die for a country like Estonia or Bulgaria, as well as America?
I believe so.
This is Viking country. It's cold, it's muddy, it's really, really wet. And just like in real war, there's a lot of waiting around, a lot of time to think. The Cold War ended nearly 30 years ago. An entire generation was born in that time, graduated high school, even college. Did these Americans want to go to war to protect Norway? It turns out some do.
Do you guys think that America still has a role to play on the international stage to protect other countries, to keep up democracy, to protect European allies?
Oh, of course. Yes. The United States itself is, let's not joke around, is the most powerful country in the world right now.
How are you?
Some Norwegian soldiers say they don't have the luxury of debating NATO's relevance. Russia is literally next door.
Do you think most Norwegians support NATO?
Definitely.
They think it's still relevant today in 2018?
Oh yeah, I think most Norwegians believe it's more relevant now than before. I don't want my kids to speak Russian. I want them to be Norwegian. Yeah.
No surprise, but Russia takes a very different view and sees America and NATO as the aggressors.
Push up more if you have to.
Still, in recent years, Russia has done more than just provoke. It's actually gone to war with its neighbors in Georgia, Crimea, and Ukraine. But the streets of Trondheim are hundreds of miles away from the Russian border. It doesn't feel like the front line of a new Cold War. People are just going about their normal lives, not thinking about NATO. The alliance has been trying to change that. For Trident Juncture, it found an unlikely Instagram star, this guy.
Trident Juncture 2018 is the biggest NATO exercise in decades.
That's Lasse Mottberg. He's a lieutenant in the Royal Norwegian Navy. He's also a former chef, a part-time model, probably the fittest guy you've ever met, and he has more than 500,000 followers on Instagram.
The feedback is positive. They're really curious on what the fuss is all about, and I'm trying to give like an honest picture of what I see.
Was Lasse winning hearts and minds? Maybe hearts. But I wanted to speak to Norwegians outside the military to get their views. So we went to one of the country's top universities for a chat.
To think about Russia as a threat to Norway today is kind of far-fetched for most people, I believe.
If you ask Norwegians, would you be willing to fight for Norway in case of a military conflict? Almost everyone, 90% say yes.
But are they willing to fight for, say, Estonia or Bulgaria?
It's a critically important question. That's exactly where, Norway can be drawn into a situation with Russia. It's via NATO. We're not a threat towards Russia.
Is NATO still relevant today?
I do believe so, in a bit, especially for smaller countries like Norway. We are, 5 to 6 million people, and if a big power like Russia were to attack us, we know that we have allies that will hopefully protect us and help us.
It's probably not a perfect alliance, but here's the weird thing. Even if it doesn't feel like it, we're living in one of the most peaceful times in human history.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.